Here. It doesn't make Okay. No, still is not.
No, can't hear you.
It's not coming out.
No. Can you check it out? Flip it to your beard.
Ah, there you go.
Talk to your peers.
Talk to your beard. Thank you, Steve.
Okay. Should I introduce myself, or do you want to do your thing first?
Real quickly, I just want to thank everybody for coming today. Part of our distinguished speaker series. And yes, he's going to do his own self-introduction today, but his name is Dr. Fleischman. Want to remind everybody on the third Friday of each month we have the port tours, and you can sign up here if you're interested in that. We also have on October 20th coming up the Lighthouse tours, and you can sign up for that here as well. And with that, we are going. Yes.
If we gave our email address, will those announcements come through?
Our newsletter is coming out on September 1st. It's a quarterly. It'll have all the speakers. It'll have the video, where the videos are, everything you ever wanted to know.
And it'll come through the email?
It'll come through the email if you gave us your email.
Right, okay, great.
Okay, that's great to know. All right.
Hello, I'm Mark Fleischman. I'm a retired professor from Syracuse University, retired in 2002, a long time already. I did my field work for my PhD in the Orinoco Delta of Venezuela. Venezuela is back in the news again, and I have to preface my talk by saying none of what you're seeing is still there. It's all gone, including the people. People have fled to Brazil. Have you get the LA Times or the Wall Street Journal? There have been big articles on this. So many people are fleeing Venezuela that the neighboring states are beginning to get very nervous about it.
Are you talking about the indigenous peoples?
All the people.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. The indigenous people are suffering even more because they became dependent upon the Western society. Western society, people are starving, there's no goods, there's nothing, and the Indians are literally starving to death. They're fleeing to Brazil in order to be able to live. So, when I talk about these people, I'll get into that. So all of this now is the past. It's all dead and gone. The Indians aren't there anymore. They're down in Brazil. They're part of the Western civilization. They've amalgamated down there. The villages always were temporary and moved around, so they rapidly decay. So the villages that I show you on today's slides long ago disappeared, although the sites were used over and over again. You're going to get a low-tech presentation. All these slides are taken back when I was in the field. And I'm surprised as many of them turned out as they did. All right, so the bad times started when Chavez took over the government, and the area that I was in was the Orinoco Delta. And it was a territory. It's called Delta Amacuro. It was not a state in Venezuela. It was run by the government at a distance. The law was enforced by the missions that were there. But after Chavez, they turned it into a national park, which meant the government took control. And then nasty things began to happen. There's oil there, so they began drilling for oil, and the way they do that is they drop TNT into the river bottom. It blows up, and if oil comes to the surface, you got to weld it. The other thing that was happening that people began hearing about was that Chavez was in cooperation with the drug dealers in Colombia, and they were beginning to ship drugs down through this area as a landing point for takeoff for the States. And this area is uncharted. But first of all, these are the Antilles coming down. This is Trinidad, and this is the delta of the Orinoco right there. Can anybody see that?
Hard to close those blinds.
Can we close the blinds?
We pulled the two here.
Scott, can you reach that?
Well, this is an enlargement of the delta. There it is. So this whole thing is the delta. This is the Orinoco River. It's I think it's the third largest river in the world. So its delta is big. It's as big as the Mississippi Delta and probably larger. The rest of the slides will be brighter. This is a little bit washed out. The Native Americans that I studied are called the Warao, W-A-R-A-O, or if you want it in Spanish, G-U-A-R-A-O. And they lived in the littoral, L-I-T-T-O-R-A-L, which is where you have ocean front on the delta. You have tidal fluctuations. So you have the tide rise and fall, and you also have a seasonal rise and fall. Tidal rise and fall, of course, is every 24 hours. Seasonal is every few months. So they existed in small villages in this area, not back in here. This is a mangrove delta. And that is different than a swamp. Swamps and groves have different ecologies. In a mangrove grove, you have flowing water. You have little streamlets. You have water flowing through the flat parts of the area. It's all flowing water so that the water is constantly replenished and flows out to the ocean, or in this case to the Caribbean. A swamp has no outlet for the water. The water sits there until it's absorbed by the soil or not, as the case may be. And the water is pretty bad. Usually it smells. And it's not very healthy. Whereas the flowing water keeps mosquito populations down. That's relative. It's healthier in the groves than in a swamp. In a swamp also, you can't get fish. And a lot of the plants that they live off of don't grow in the swamp. They grow in groves. This is Mother Orinoco. This is the Orinoco River, the main drag. With the Native Americans, I'm back on these little streamlets and little rivers in the back of it. This is immense. This is a man in a dugout canoe. You have to be careful not to hit these things. You've got oil tankers, you've got liners coming up through here. Big ocean going boats. So it can be pretty dangerous here because you can't be seen from a big boat, especially if you're in a little dugout canoe. Very awesome. I learned the meaning of the word awesome. When you come out in a dugout canoe into this, or into the ocean from the mouth of the delta, it's very big. You're very small. This is a mangrove grove. They have a certain look to them. They go from low to high, like a dish turned upside down. The old trees are in the center. The young trees are on the outside. This is because the mangrove is a pioneer species, is what they're called. They're adapted to their environment, which is they start out in salt water or brackish water, and they have a lot of tannin in them so that they're able to do osmosis and get rid of a lot of the salt. So the little trees start, the red mangroves have living young. They're a pod that hangs from the tree, and the next thing you see are rootlets coming out of it, still hanging from the tree, and then it goes plunk, and it lands root first in wet mud, and the roots are out from the thing so it doesn't fall over it, and it sits there and grows. So the older trees are in the center, the little new ones are constantly being planted in salt water around the outskirts. The mangrove itself serves as a sieve, so it begins accumulating mud and detritus in the root system. It builds land where there was no land. So you had ocean, young mangroves, wavelets washing up. In the center, you have mud, but it's beginning to become land. And you have the older trees established in the center. Mangroves can't replace themselves. You can't plant a sapling in the center where there's already a lot of mud. And so when an old tree dies in the center, that's it. It's not replaced. It goes on to be replaced by a tree that can grow in land. So these are a pioneer species. It's a highly specialized ecology.
Can you explain again the purpose of the tannin?
The tannin is to help in osmosis because the tree has a lot of substance already in its system that can resist the salt that it would otherwise absorb. And as a matter of fact, the red mangroves are used industrially for tannin. There are sawmills that saw it out, then they turn it into powder, they put it into trenches in the ground, and they leach the tannin out of it, and the tannin can be used to tan things, to be used as an industrial product. These are young mangroves. You got brackish water here. It's one of the smaller streams, and you got the young mangroves down here, and the ones that are starting to grow over there, and you got the older ones down here. It's very dense. You would have a great deal of difficulty trying to walk there. Great deal of difficulty. You can't get a canoe into there because there's all these roots and the little plants that are growing up in there. So you can't push a canoe into there. You can't walk in there. If you step out, you could twist your ankle. You can't see what's under you. There's often land is much further down than the water. And I told you already there's seasonality. In spring, when all the mountain waters come down into the Orinoco, of course the Orinoco empties through the delta, you get a lot of water coming through all at once, and the water level can go from knee-high to 40 feet. So this is seasonal. What you can catch, what you can grow, what you can live off of is dictated by the seasons. So in certain seasons you can starve there, and when the waters in spring come down, the fish all go upstream. You got 40 feet of water where you had your village, and you're not going to be living there. You have to move upstream. So it's a seasonal lifestyle. And these people who cultivated this are living on the edge, and I'll explain that in a little while. And here we go, the family car. Dugout canoe with everybody on the way. We got the dogs, You got a parrot, you got a kid, you got mommy and dad and the belongings in baskets in here. They're on their way somewhere. I don't know exactly where.
Are those
Ah.
the canoes that they would burn out the whole?
Yes. They are extremely safe, by the way, dugout canoes. First of all, they chop down a really big tree if they're going to make a big canoe, which can carry many people, or a smaller tree if you just want a few people. They hollow out only a little portion of it, which means the rest of the tree is the original solid tree with all the weight. So your keel is the unhollowed out part of the trunk. You can stand on the edge of one of these and you can bounce up and down and it will not flip. It may flip you, but it'll just go back and forth to the work. You can't tumble it.
Is there a particular wood that they use for the dugout?
Any hardwood tree that they can get. Yeah.
Are they too heavy to carry over the ground in the land? Too heavy, are they too heavy to carry?
Oh yeah, you can't carry them. You can't portage them. No. You have to find a way to paddle it somewhere. And you can watch the kids. They learn very, very early. I've seen kids in a broken dugout. Half a dugout looks like a scoop. They sit in the back, so the scoop's up in the air. And they go paddling around because there's no streets here. They play on the water. They play tag. They go do something, play a game, and they're always on water, unless they're in the house in the village. So here we have something new. This is a waterside water iris. They invaded Florida, by the way. They are a royal pain. This can block off a whole small stream. And they're like the fabled dragons or something. You fight it, and you cut off a piece and it grows into a new one. That's what these things do. If you go in there and pulverize them, each little piece grows into a new plant. So you can't get rid of it that way. They're a real pain.
Are they
Huh?
native to Venezuela?
They're native, but they're a little out of control. Yeah, they are native plants. Yeah, but if what controls them is the density of the other plants behind them. Won't allow them to get any further, so they're stuck where they are. But if you go to Florida, where you've got open waterways, they just go bonkers. They get into your outboard propeller, and your outboard propeller slices them up, and you get more. So this is the water iris, and here is a palm tree. It's called a moriche, M-O-R-I-C-H-E, moriche palm. And this is the tree of life for the Warao people. They eat the fruit, which is high in vitamin C, and in doing that, they throw the seeds all around on the ground in the village. And the village eventually, when it's abandoned and they move elsewhere, grows into a new grove of moriche palms. So they're replenishing their own food source. So you eat the fruit, you use the leaves for thatch on the houses, and you use the fiber from the leaves to make the hammocks. And you cut the tree down, you break into the trunk, and you render it for sago, S-A-G-O. Sago is 100% pure starch. If you tried to live on it as a diet without anything else, you would be in deep trouble. You can actually starch a shirt with it. But as an addition to a diet, it's your starch addition. I'll show you the making of that.
What's the fruit taste like? What kind of fruit is it?
It's very sour, and it looks a lot like it has a big pit, so you just eat the flesh around it. It's got a big pit, it's got a hard outer shell. They bust it and then eat the soft part of it. And as I said, high in vitamin C. So if you got this sago, which isn't giving you any food value. You get at least your vitamin C you're getting off the fruit, and then they eat other things. And you have to add protein, which often is insects. I might as well be funny right now. My breakfasts consisted of oatmeal that I bought at a trader's place on the river. I hate oatmeal. I used to gag it down because I needed something in it. And then I'd have a mango. I don't like mangoes. And then I would have black coffee. And of course I'd add sugar. I'm in an area where they grow sugar cane and stuff, so I can always get sugar. So you have your sugar in a container, and there are ants there that are so tiny you can hardly make them out. You open up your sugar, and it's full of sugar and ants. So you take the sugar, you throw it into the coffee, the ants float to the surface because they're lighter, and you dip them out, and you drink your coffee, sugar, and an occasional ant, and you're getting your protein. You get immune to all this stuff. You know, nowadays, if somebody says, "Oh, look at that, you got a fruit fly in your wine," so what? Didn't drink much, and it's protein. I'm still here. All right, so the Marucci palm is very important to them. And as you can see, it grows thickly. This is a typical modern village. Of course, it was modern in 1967, so this is long gone now. But you can see the thatch from the palms, and they put up a wall wherever the weather will blow in, and it's a movable wall. Put it on this side of the house, the rain's blowing in the other side of the house, you take the wall and you put it on the other side of the house. It's very handy. You want to leave your houses open. This is very tropical. Most of the time it was like 88 to 90 something percent humidity, and the temperature ranged between like 89 and 95. So you were sweating the entire period of time. I used to have trouble with the camera. If I accidentally passed my hand too close to the lens in front of the camera, I'd look at it, the whole lens was fogged up. I'd have to wait for the fog to disappear. And also your film began to go bad. The emulsion began to go bad in this stuff. So this is a fairly sophisticated village. There are many that are less sophisticated than that. This has little things besides the houses. This is a kitchen house right here. That's where they prepare the food and stuff. I don't know what that one is. Maybe another kitchen house. You can see the stairway going up. There's tidal rise and fall here. So sometimes the water is up to the floor, and sometimes it's down here. And that's in a 24-hour cycle. So there's a trick to tying up your canoe. And luckily, they're unsinkable. Because if you don't know what you're doing, like Mark Fleischman, and you tie your canoe up at high tide, high on the pole, on the poles of the house, and you come out at low tide, your canoe is hanging like this. And then if the tide rises again, if it's not a canoe that floats, it just rises up around your boat. Your boat's hanging there like this in the water. So you have to know what you're doing in these areas. Alright, so you have the tidal rise and fall.
Mark, is that just for one family, or is that?
No, this is probably about 3 or 4 families. I'll get to that too. I hope. Well, Errol Flynn crept in here. I don't know how he got in. The anthropologist at work.
Oh my God.
Is that you?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes, indeed.
That's a fishing vest. Has a lot of pockets. And pockets are very, very handy.
You look tall there.
Because the lintels are low. Matter of fact, it was fun because I was often the tallest person in a whole village. They were all shorter than I was. They used to say, "Un hombre con palo," man like a pole. This was the school teacher's house, and it was summer, so she was gone and I was allowed to use it. It's associated with the mission. But it's a house that you can see is built with regular walls. And people don't want to live in something like that. It's dark, it's hot. If you have no walls, breeze flows through. Your privacy is, you want to close your eyes, you want to be private, fine. But everybody is in everybody's sight, whatever's going on. This was the village across the way from me. As you can see, they also had houses with regular walls. These are hammocks hanging here. I don't know if you can see that. What's upside down and what's not. It's beautiful down there early in the morning. It's fantastic. The heat hasn't come out yet. You can sit on the front of your dock, whatever you want to call it, and just look at the world. I was enjoying myself immensely down here. I've always been a little bit of a loner anyway. And my parents were having heart attacks. They even looked up things that were wrong and made things worse. So they said, oh, he's studying the Warao, except that they looked up the Hivaro. The Hivaro are headhunters. So he's living with headhunters somewhere in South America. We don't hear from them. And I was having the time of my life, yeah.
The question I was going to ask is, in good transition, is why in the world did you pick this?
Well, I'm a bioanthropologist, and I was at UCLA, and a cultural anthropologist who had devoted his life in studying these people, Johannes Wilber, came to me and he said, I'd like to have some of their biology done. How would you like to go down? I said, I'm gone. Where are they? And that was it.
Oh, okay.
And then people were telling me wonderful things. People who don't like doing this kind of stuff, I don't know why they became anthropologists. One guy came up to me, he said, I lost 20 pounds when I went down here. You're dead. I gained 10 pounds.
You like that start?
I was living off mission food. They bake loaves of bread and donate them to the mission. I go buy 2 loaves of bread. I dream of ice cream sundaes. I really got all messed up dietarily. Okay, another dugout canoe on the road here, but it's 3 kids playing in the street. So they learn to paddle very, very early. Don't worry about the canoe tipping. It isn't going to tip and dump them in the water unless they play stupid and get on the edge. There's no harm in going in the water if everybody else goes in the water. That was the warning to me. Do not go swimming if they're not in there swimming.
Wow.
There are what are they call Caribe after the Caribe Indians. They're, I guess that's the piranha.
Oh, piranha?
They actually eat, they eat people?
They'll eat anything that drops in the water that they taste, and if you have blood, if you had a little cut or something like that, they would swarm you.
So piranha.
What?
Did you see
What
it?
about alligator crocs or alligators or
There were caiman.
caiman?
Anaconda.
But usually you can see them, and somehow they were not very intimidating. They didn't really approach you, the boat or you or anything like that. But the piranha you can't see, and they're all over the place. This is high tide. This is a kitchen house. This is taro. Wet taro grows there as a natural plant. So it's the same sort of foodstuffs that you hit in the Pacific. Sago, taro, and those are both starches. Sugar cane, that was brought in. Mango trees, that was brought in. But the taro grew naturally there and the sago was there. There's all the dugouts tied up. So this is a kitchen at work. They're doing their things. Kids coming in from my play. It's a typical scene, day in the village thereof.
Were there any drownings when you were there?
Not that I knew of, but there were other sad things. Modern medicine was just reaching them, which is not necessarily a good thing. I might as well talk about it now. I won't get to talk about it later. This is it's a delicate ecology. It's a highly specialized ecology. The Warao had to hide their existence from the surrounding tribes. Surrounding tribes were Caribe and Arawak. How many of you have heard of them?
Yep.
They were the ones that welcomed Columbus with arrows when he appeared offshore. They were sophisticated farmers, but they were very warlike. The Caribe and the Arawak were very interesting genetically. They were each other's favorite enemies. What do? You raid into a village, you kill all the men, you take the women and children, bring them back to your village, and they become your women and children. Then the children grow up, they're now Arawak or Caribe, and they have to go back and raid. So you're mixing your genes actually. All the males are Arawak and all the females and kids are Caribe, and then the next generation, they're all Caribe and raiding it. And so they're trading genes back and forth. They were essentially one tribe, but they liked fighting. These people, small in numbers, 9,000 to 12,000 when I was there, and it was a growing population, they hid themselves in the delta, all the way in the back in the groves, because the Caribe and Arawak were not interested in the land. They were growing crops, and they weren't interested in chasing these people into the hinterland, and then they wouldn't be able to find their way out. This is trackers. You have to be somebody who knows what they're doing, or you're gone. You don't know where you are. You don't know how to get out of there. So these people were living off the land, so to speak, in the heart of this delta to stay away from the more aggressive tribes. And they had this specialized diet. They were living off the land. Little fish that they could catch in the little streams back in there, sago, taro, the occasional animal that they could catch. And this is the way they lived their lives. These villages were hidden. They were very cleverly hidden. When they'd come out to a main river, they would drop logs and make a ladder of cross pieces, and then they would sink it below the level of the surface of the water. They knew where that trail was. It's a sunken trail. And they can walk on it, and you don't even know it's there, and you can't find a village unless they take you there. So that was their way of getting back into with these hidden trails. And at one point, there was a European explorer there, and he was told, he saw one of these people walking on water. They said, oh, they're dangerous water sprites, don't get near them. So they were left alone, and they could live their own lives in this environment.
Were they happy?
I would say they were happy. Life is not easy. Okay, we get back. I saw children dying of whatever, young. Now, you bring in modern medicine. Here they are in this specialized ecology with limited food sources. They have to keep the population small. We go in and go, we'll save the children. They used to have something like 9, 10 children, and maybe if you're lucky, 5 would live. All right, that keeps the population small. It's not a happy, we don't think it's a happy thing. But if you bring in modern medicine, they're going to overeat their food supply, they're going to kill the ecology, and that's exactly what was going on when I was there. They were overfishing the fish supply. And they become then, at that point, totally dependent on Western society, which has moved in and they move out into Western society. So their numbers, it's not always good to bring in Western medicine. You have to look at the whole picture. Or as I say, you don't want to mess around with Mother Nature because you can't account for all the side effects of the one thing that you're doing that you think is so nice and wonderful.
So the children would die of things that wouldn't necessarily kill a child.
Dysentery, pneumonia, and I was in a conflict situation. I came in as an anthropologist. I'll take a political stand. Modern anthropologists don't do that. They're sort of advocates. We're going to give you stuff and you're going to do well, blah, blah. When I was there, the word is you're observing. You're not part of the society. You don't want to be part of the society. You want to always be an outsider. You want to sit outside and watch. Well, you watch children die. You watch things happen to people. And they had learned a little bit about modern medicine. They came to me and they said, do you have anything for this kid? So I gave them aspirin. But I didn't have anything there. I had anti-malarials, but there was no malaria because Venezuela at that time was an extremely strong democracy. It was the strongest democracy in South America. It was one of the wealthiest, and they had spent a lot of money on health. They had sprayed the Delta to a fairly well with DDT and killed all the mosquitoes. No malaria. Of course, they had a lot of other side effects going on, who knows? But there was no malaria. So I was taking anti-malaria just to be careful. But nobody was dying of malaria at that time. Again, high tide. Men standing there around the crop of tours. That's a big outboard with a outboard motor. They get enough money or whatever, or they had connections, they put an outboard on that. The interesting thing about that is there might be, if you're lucky in your village, and it was a big village and it was a wealthy village, you get one outboard. So the outboard was used by everybody. He'd get into his boat in the morning, he'd go somewhere, somebody said, oh, are you going, what are you, yeah, okay, tie on. And they'd have a long train of canoes and this one outboard.
Uber.
So is it run on diesel or gasoline?
Gasoline.
Where'd they get that?
They'd
Someplace?
have to go get it at the mission, which means that they'd have to trade products or labor at the mission. One of my friends, it's a skink.
Skink?
Skink. It's a lizard. They're wonderful. I love them. They lived in the thatch, you know, lived under the boards and the floor. And they ate cucarachas. They ate not cockroaches, the big ones.
Beetles?
No, not beetles.
The hissing one?
But they look like cockroaches, but they're about that big. We call them something else. They ate them. And anything that eats one of them is a friend of mine. At one point, I usually arranged it so I didn't have to go during the middle of the night. And one night I just had to go. So I got out of my hammock, didn't get out. I was on the edge of my hammock, and I shone my flashlight on the floor. Never do that.
Oh.
And it was literally a seething bed of these fluids. Like to feed.
Oh, my goodness.
And so then I pulled the separating of the seas. I show them like they're toxic, they avoid light. So I shine my light and they pull aside on both sides. And I said, do not look behind you. Do not look behind you.
Oh, my goodness. Wow.
This is approaching the village that I made my headquarters. There's the schoolhouse right there with the tin roof. And all the rest are native abode.
Was school mandatory?
What?
Was school mandatory for the children? No.
No, and if you wanted to get things from the mission,
You had to go.
you had to go. They would lie all the time. Guy had 2 or 3 wives. Missionary would go, who are they? Oh, they're my sister's cousins. Might have been his sister's cousins, but he was married to them. These villages creep up and down the river because when a house decays, they don't bother fixing it or correcting it. They just let it go until it falls into the water. And they build a new house down on the end of the village. So the village just keeps moving down, stream, upstream, wherever.
On the subject of marriage, do they have a certificate or is it just kind of
I
like?
know. Yeah, it was pretty informal. All right, now we'll get into marriage. There's matrilocal, patrilocal, and I'll give you the next word in a minute. Matrilocal, you go live with your wife's people, or your wife, actually. You're going to live in the house where your wife lives. Patrilocal, you're going to go live in the house where your father lives. Or you're going to stay at home, your wife's going to come to your house. These make things more difficult. A Latin word, these people were uxorolocal. It's a little complex. It's a patrilineal society. But when you get married, you go to live with your wife and your mother and your father-in-law. And you owe your father-in-law labor. And so, even though it's a society that's patrilineal, women are extremely valuable because your family size and your power base is how many daughters do you have who will attract son-in-laws to come in to work for you. And then when your son-in-law has son-in-laws, and you're probably as big as something, and he starts feeling a little of his own oats, we say, bye, Pops, I'm going to start my own village. I have 2 sons-in-law, I have another daughter on the way, bye-bye. And he starts his own village. Now, these villages aren't changed, so when you have a son, he tries to go where his relatives have gone before. So if there's still any marriageable women where his relatives have gone before, he's going to marry into that village, not just any village. He's going to follow his uncles, he's going to follow his brothers, and go to those villages to get married. You can't have more than one wife, but because of the fact that you have to go and live with your wife's family, generally you're going to marry sisters.
Oh.
And the women aren't exactly dumb about this. They're not going to give you a second marriage unless you've proven in your first marriage you're a capable guy and you're really doing your stuff. And here we are, I'm entertaining at night, and what I'm doing is, I didn't speak their language at all, I was learning words, but the anthropologist who sent me down there had translated their folk tales, not translated, he had written out their folk tales in, I'm blanking on it, in a way that you can pronounce the word. Phonetically. So I was reading their tales to them phonetically. I didn't know what the hell I was reading. But they were jokester tales, you know, like Brer Rabbit and Bear. They'd be roaring with laughter at the trick that some animal would play on them. So they enjoyed the evening, and so did I. And I got to see a lot of them when I built a rapport. And this was, of course, taken with a flash camera. I didn't know what a flash camera was. And so there was the flash. You can see. Is that
How old were you, Mark?
26.
Were you married?
Oh, to be 26. No, you don't want to go to these places or even when you're married and have the babies. Some did do that. It wasn't good.
How long were you there?
1 year. The cultural anthropologists go for extended stays. They're there for 3, 4, 5 years. This is a sawmill run by a Creole. And it's associated to some extent with the mission. Sawdust, solid land where there wasn't any before. So they dump all their sawdust, they create solid land, and lo and behold, a porker. They raise their own pigs. What else don't eat? Those things they eat what they catch, they eat fish, they eat animals. I ate various kinds of rodent. Don't ask. If you're hungry, just eat. You learn a lot of different dietary things. I wanted to get a picture of a family in my village. Again, this is that's the schoolhouse. That's next door to my school teacher's house. That's the schoolhouse. And as soon as I brought out the camera to take a picture, they had already been acculturated enough to know that they're supposed to dress up and comb their hair, and they all disappeared. I thought, shoot, missed the picture. 5 minutes later, they're all there prancing around in their Sunday best. Here we are in tropical summer. He's wearing a Logan coat. I don't know where the heck he got it. This kid is comfortable.
He's naked there.
These are secondhand clothes, but this dress is made by the native women right out of the cloth, right out of the old cloth. You can tell where a woman comes from in this delta by the style of the dress. There was moo style, they came from one set of villages, and there was this European style with the waist and the puffy sleeves, and they came from a different set. Different village set. What I really wanted to get here and couldn't get is what we call blondism or blonding of the hair, bleaching of the hair from the sunlight. Not everybody's hair can bleach. There are genes that allow hair to bleach, and there are genes that prevent hair from bleaching. This kid had bleached hair, and of course she wet it down, so you can see the red highlights. Kitchen house, late in the afternoon work, that's the water iris floating gaily down the stream. Mother and daughter spending valuable time together. This is delousing hour. She's going through her mother's hair, mother will go through her hair.
Do the birds transfer the lice?
Hmm?
Do the birds transfer lice?
I really don't know. There are a lot of birds there.
Yeah, Hawaii, I know that there was some lice that I heard about.
Well, it can happen. I mean, there are mites that birds transfer all over the place.
Okay.
If you have a bird's nest and the young leave, and you have nice body warmth emanating from your bedroom, and you have an open window with the nest, you're going to suddenly start. And then you look, and there's all these mice. Not mice, mites. All right, that's mother-daughter time.
Is that a hallway there, or there's a plank between the?
That's just the plank to get from one to the other house. You have to do a lot of balancing. And the walkways rot out, and they don't replace them or repair them. So you'll have a gap this wide, and either you can say, can I make it or not, and fall in, or you can walk on the edges where the boards. And here we have laundry time, early in the morning. She's washing clothes in a bucket. You can see the water's about halfway. Tidal, that was up to here, now it's down to here.
How did they get the poles into the, whatever?
I don't know. I saw them working on houses, but the poles were always in. I saw them roofing them and putting up floors and walls, but I never saw them sink the poles. Here's a pet parrot. When I was there, a lot of the the big rodents, capybara. Capybara were being killed for meat. There are no capybara there anymore because they learned that they could sell them down in Brazil. So they're killing and selling them down in Brazil. They themselves didn't eat them. Matter of fact, they had no word for kill in their vocabulary. They'd come up and say, capybara just died. Well, how did it die? Well, he shot that. There were at sunrise and sunset, there were flights of blue macaw. There was just a cloud over the whole sky. They're gone. They're gone. So, this is the schoolhouse. It's right down next to me. This is where I was staying. This is the schoolhouse. They get these floats from fishermen that float up from the Caribbean, come up river with the tide. They pull them out. The glass one is sort of hollow. You can use them to catch rainwater. And that way you don't drink the river water, which often doesn't look so good. And you do get parasitized if you don't watch it. Here's the anthropologists that work measuring years.
So bioanthropology, you were studying the physical attributes of the people or their economy or their diet?
Their physical attributes, and it was the 60s, so didn't know much about DNA or anything like that, but I was looking at gene flow, and because of the way these villages are set up, you got genetic distance and you got physical distance. Genetic distance can be longer than the physical distance between two villages. So two villages that are close still don't have anything to do with one another, but they're mating downstream in a distant village, so that's where genetic distance is going. It's where you marry and leave your genes and get your relatives, and it doesn't have to be a village that's close by. Well, here you got two rivers running out to the Caribbean, and they never join, or the streams are too small for canoes. You can't walk it because you'll sink into mud or quicksand. So you have to go all the way out into the Caribbean, all the way back up the next river to the village right behind you. So you can see their smoke. You can hear their voices. But you do your mating downstream about 5 miles. That's genetic distance. So I figured I was looking at gene flow. Where genes flow like water. Genes go where you go. If you leave your genes behind, then the genes have flowed to that area. So invaders are gene flow. Kilroy was here. Gene flow. So I'm looking at gene flow here because genes are not being just spread in general through the population. They're flowing in this direction, they're flowing in that direction. We do the same thing. You marry less often with people of another religion than of your own religion. So gene flow is more common within the religion, and you get occasional gene flow out. So there's a barrier to the genes moving out.
Now, what does the measurement of the year have to do with that?
Well, just, we were trying to do, there were polygene traits, but in this case, you measured anything on the body that could be measurable, and then you tried to see whether you could do anything with it. That's a standard anthropological measurement. That's what just was done because it was done. Can't see it. That is a spider on its egg case in the thatch. The spider's about that big. They didn't really come down from the thatch very often, so I just said, don't look at it. There were scorpions, and those were a little bit more dangerous. Those you really had to watch out for. And you had to get into habits that you're not used to here, like banging your shoes on the floor before you put them on, take your trousers and shake them out good. And still, every once in a while, people get stung. No funny thing. Get stung by a scorpion. And that's a drinking cup from a kid. And that's one of the water bugs. The things that, what, huh? No. Oh, but there are palm borers. It's a big beetle. Matter of fact, if it hits you and it's flying, it hurts. But it lays its young, its eggs on palm trees, and the young are borers. Larvae. They're as big as your thumb, so the natives call them the same name they use for their thumb, mole. So they call them thumb. They're big, they're fat. When people eat them raw, I couldn't get into that, you know, pop it in the mouth, and they love them. They're a delicacy, but it's like eating a pat of butter. So it's not really good for you either. If you eat too much of that stuff, you're getting high cholesterol. But they also roast them on spits. And so I was watching them roast one, and I said, "Can I have one?" They said, "No, we know you don't like those kind of things." No dibs. All right, this is just my village street. Main Street. The only street. That's the village, again, across the way. Oh wait, no, this is another village. We're coming here for a celebration of Sago. There's going to be a whole bunch of villages descending on this village. There's going to be dances all night. And they're celebrating the Sago.
Do you remember what time of year?
The start of the rainy season. It was probably, remember, it's south of the equator, so we're starting into the fall. It's probably June or July.
Did they use any mind-altering substances?
They didn't.
Were they?
You did it.
I didn't have any. I used tobacco, and the tobacco they had was so powerful. You go, that's enough.
Did they farm at all?
Yeah, little bitty pieces of farming. Of course, they weren't really farmers. They would collect wild material, but they were learning from the West, and so they'd have a little rice paddy. This big. And they would have rice.
Where did their tobacco come from?
I don't know where it came from, but it used to come braided, whole leaf that was braided, and they would use it as a chaw, cut off the section, just put it in my. I would unfold it, I would slice it up and put it in my pipe. And as I said, one, your whole mouth burned and your tongue swollen. It was like not cultivated tobacco, you know.
They have it.
It was raw tobacco. Can't see it. That's Sunset Village across the way. Artsy craftsy. This was one of my guides. I had two guides. Sad story. This guy's fine. Bing Crosby. I think he really does look like Bing Crosby. Really nice guy. He was the son-in-law of the village chief. And he took over as my guide. The first guide I hired by myself, he seemed to be really good, got on for a little while, and then in the middle of the night, I would hear a canoe start up, the outboard, and it would turn out to be my canoe, and he was taking my canoe at night, going to a nearby town and getting dead drunk. They have an alcohol problem like the Native Americans here. And I had a good which was pretty safe. So this guy, it's like being in one of those 1950s African adventure movies. You know, Anjamo or something. You're in your canoe, you have your guide at the back, your stuff is all wrapped in tarps in the front, and you're in the middle, and you're buzzing down the river going somewhere. That's my canoe. That's the mission canoe. As you see, it has they built a superstructure onto it. This is the UCLA canoe, kept by the mission for people from UCLA to come down here.
How far away was the mission from the village where you were at?
It was a pretty far ride, but I also stayed at the mission village as well occasionally. When I had to write up my material and had to take a break and needed a little more sophisticated surroundings, I would go to the mission. They had a sawmill.
Oh, yes, the rest of us
And they did a lot of lumber, especially the red mangrove. Red mangrove is very pretty. It's a softwood. This is my unfortunate first guy.
Being fun.
But as I said, it's just like being in a movie. My parents were never able to.
What was under that tarp there?
Huh?
What's under the tarp?
All my belongings, everything.
Have a typewriter with you?
No. Try to avoid anything mechanical. Because it was just, as I said, just awful. The humidity and the heat. Just there you are. They're building a house. I watched them. They're building a house. It began to rain a little. Then it came down, and just absolute downpour. You could hardly see through it. So they stopped working. They stood there. As soon as the rain stopped, they got back to it. This is a different village. Again, it has a schoolhouse coming up on it. Somebody has a kitchen fire going. You can see the smoke over there. Oh, I don't throw it? No. Why is it not going down? Okay, not going down in. All right, early morning, the women of the village set off to do their chores, mainly gathering. You can see all the women, the children, and
Gathering? Gathering what?
gathering the taro, going out to work on the sago,
Was there any kind of greenery that they could harvest, like herbs?
Yeah, they did. They used herbs and stuff.
Oh.
Did they fish or the men?
Yeah, they fished, but originally they were spear fishermen, and that was okay because it's harder to fish that way. But then somebody taught them how to net, and they treated the whole fish. And you fish in the rivers, but there were these tiny fish that were back in the muddy grove areas. And they ate them mostly. They put them on a fire and stew it. And you ate the whole fish, you didn't even bother, just popped it in your mouth.
Did they eat piranhas too? Did they eat piranhas?
No. Even if you try fishing for a piranha, their teeth are so fabulous in terms of the way they interlock. They break a fish hook, they'll cut right through it. This is a large village. This is an acculturated village. These are the villages that are left and where the people now are leaving from for Brazil.
So the Warao are all moving out?
Yep.
Going to Guyana?
They're either starving or they're headed for Brazil. One or the other. This is an unacculturated village, had nothing to do with the mission. It was built on the edge of a stream. The houses are sort of not well built. They're directly built, directly on the mud. So that all the waste, instead of going into the river, which is not good anyway because I'm downstream, but all the waste is right under them on the mud. Every single person in this village was sick with either a cold or whatever, but this is unacculturated. people who are just moving into the acculturation. Ooh, it's already 12:15. All right. That's the mission. That's a mission village. These are, how many of you want to stay, or I can just cut it out?
Go till 12:30.
These are people from villages coming into the mission to get, they had a Coke machine. And it was filled every Monday, and by 4 o'clock it was empty. And people would come in from all these villages and spend whatever money they had earned on Coke. But anyhow,
Do we want to know what mission this was? Do we want to know what mission it was?
the Guayo mission is what it was called.
So was it a Spanish mission?
Yeah, it's actually
Catholic Spanish?
Venezuela's,
Oh.
Venezuelan.
Is it more government or religion?
Oh, yeah. Oh, they're associated with the government.
Oh.
Out here, while this was a frontier area, they were the law.
They're Catholics, right?
Yeah. These are mission girls. You can see how sturdy they are. They're running around on solid land. They're eating a lot of fatty food because the missions cook Spanish, so everything's cooked in oil and stuff like that. So they put on quite a bit of weight. This is the mission chicken house. They were raising chickens. And chickens have a smell, and they lay eggs. And the next thing you knew, if you look very carefully, you would see an occasional python. It was an attractant.
Anaconda.
Food.
Anaconda.
Anaconda.
Is it the same thing?
So actually, they're increasing their own danger by raising chickens, but they used a lot of chickens. Sawmill, mission, rush hour, 2 canoes, headed down. Mission, street, natives. This is a village kid who normally never sees dry land. He's at the mission, so his parents had to dress him up. So he's dressed in a man's shirt. And he's having fun. He can run on dry land. They go nuts when they can do things they can't do on the river. And you can't see that. This is the dance of the Sego. Everybody's formed a ring, and they have ceremonial weapons, and they're marching.
Who brought clothing? Wouldn't they-
Mission and contact.
Oh, okay. Because I would think that they would be less clothed than
Now, this guy was a chief of a village. He was associated with the mission. That's another long story. There were village chiefs who were mission appointed and had no respect, got no respect, and they were the chiefs who were the chiefs.
So they had no respect for the villagers, you
They had no respect for the appointed, for the appointed.
mean. The villagers did.
They knew this guy was out for his own. He'd have his hand out the moment he walked into the village. And I'd walk into a village like with this guy, I'm the chief. Give me something. Some more. And he's dressed in a suit jacket. Oh, yeah. And here you have everybody's hammocks tied up. Everybody's sleeping under the roof, and you're in tears. And the kids are all out there on the dance floor, running around, having fun. village on the way. Family on the way. Kids doing what they call the frog dance. Sort of marching down. They do it in a circle. On the way back from the ceremony, and it's one of those, how many boats can you tie onto the rear of a boat?
That's the real rush hour.
How come they're not dropping down? Okay, this is sago being rendered. You got the trunk of the tree, it's been chopped up into sawdust. It's very messy. The water here is about thigh deep. You stand in the water, the ladies stand in the water, and they work the sawdust with water, which washes the starch out of the sawdust. And they put it in a big basket, big flat basket, and they wash it with their hands, and it leaches the starch out. And here you can see your hands up there washing the starch. You can see the water is turning chalky. And again, sawdust, chalky water, and there's the result. And you can starch your shirt in it, or you can eat starch as your whatever your heart desires. And there's some washed sawdust that's turned orange. It's no longer white. There she is with her baby carrier sitting in the middle of the road. You know, we began, I don't know when it happened, like in the 80s or 90s, women began using these little hammocks, baby carriers. They had them from way back when down there. Oh, I guess I'm done. No, just not going through. An abandoned village. Cameras at eye level. Jungles growing up around it. There's a village, well, one hut, and you can see all the hammocks in a row. This is the taro root.
What kind of nutritional value does a taro have?
You just boil it.
Poi has what kind of,
It turns blue when it's boiled.
yeah, so is it starch or does it offer protein?
It's starch, but I think it has some vitamin quality. And you have to be careful, this stuff has to be carefully rendered. If you don't peel the outsides off it, there is some sort of acid or something, I don't know what it is, and it will cause ulcers in your mouth and you'll lose your teeth. It's not good stuff. This is a medicinal vine, they use it when they have colds. And this is the jungle alongside a river. This is what it looks like. 2 or 3 different kinds of palm trees. In the back are the red mangrove. Another mangrove stand. This is called rabano. And it's actually used as fish bait. Some of the fish there are vegetarian fish.
Vegan.
Vegan fish, all right. That's another view of the jungle. That's quite impassable. You can't get in there with a canoe, and you can't walk in there.
Monkeys? Do they have monkeys?
Yeah. You can hear the howlers along, howling monkeys. These are the palm hearts are eaten out of these palms. They're a different palm tree. They chop them down, get to the heart of the palm, grow the fronds, and they eat the palm heart. So I'm sure that has some sort of food value. And here is river water. rainwater.
Take your choice.
A very large village. And sunset and goodbye to the Delta.
Thank you very much.
I have a question.
Yeah,
I'm interested in the ladder path that was built on the river.
1 second. I just gotta just turn off. Okay.
You want to do
It
the
is-
last slide there now. The last slide.
Oh, yeah, yeah. There we are.
The ladder path that they built, is it partially submerged, so you cannot see it, but you don't sink to the bottom, or is the river that shallow?
No, they tied it up to things. It can be a various depth. The path can be a various depth.
Uh-huh.
If the river is shallow, it's just under the water is just dirty enough so you can't see the ladder. But it can be, you're just walking with water lapping around your ankles, or it could be calf deep. But either way,
You're
from a
not touching the
distance.
bottom of the
no.
river. That's amazing, isn't it?
Yeah. Well, when you, as I said, they scared the other Indians because they used to just walk off into the stream.
I like that.
Any other questions?
What's happened to the Yanomama Indians of the upper Orinoco? They can,
I think they've been pretty much fully acculturated.
they get pretty much what?
Acculturated. Yama, yeah. They were Brazil.
They're in Brazil, they're not in Venezuela?
Thank you very much. As is a tradition, we're going to pass the hat here for donations to help support the activities here at the museum. Next Saturday is going to be a stimulating presentation on industrial medicine, immigrant
By
farm workers,
Steve.
and who's doing it? Myself. Thank you.
Industrial